I am Dan Penninger with Project Council Media here at Georgetown Law School. And today with us we have Larry Center, the Assistant Dean of Georgetown's programs on CLE. And one of the programs they're offering for the first time this year is the Cybersecurity Law Institute. Larry, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
So tell us about the program. It sounds like it's been a fantastic past couple of days. The speakers have been excellent, talking about issues that are really affecting corporations and law firms that I hadn't been aware of.
Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. This is a first-time program for us, as you mentioned. We do about 20 to 25 big CLE programs a year, so it takes something special for us to start a new program. We don't do one-off programs. We only do programs that we think have the potential to become annual programs. And this idea was brought to us by a practitioner in the field, Tina Ayotis. She came to us about 6 months ago saying that cybersecurity is really becoming a hot topic and there's very little continuing legal education out there about cybersecurity. So, sure enough, I checked the web and she was right. Very, very little CLE being done about cybersecurity. Then I started reading the newspapers. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Financial Times. And after a while, it seemed like there was a story about cybersecurity in the paper virtually every single day. And then when I looked on the web, as I said, more and more on cybersecurity. So I agreed with Tina that this was a great idea. And I did what we often do when we are putting on a new CLE program. We put together an advisory board of what we call SMEs, subject matter experts, people who really know cybersecurity. And we tasked them with answering the question, is there really a need for a program like this? They answered the question, yes. And if there is a need, can you help us craft a curriculum? And they did.
And so one of the parts of the curriculum this year was a scenario, a role-playing scenario, where you had fictitious people playing a general counsel at a corporation, outside counsel, the CSIO of a company, an FBI visit at a company, all because of a data breach and a cyber hack. It's gotten great reviews. I mean, people are very interested in how people are really responding in the real world to these instances. So in these scenarios, what is it that companies and chief compliance officers really need to come to the table with? What are the questions they need to have in their head when they're faced with a cybersecurity instance?
So 2 comments about what you just said. Number 1, the use of scenarios. That's not very common in continuing legal education or even in adult education. Unfortunately, in most adult education, you have a sage on the stage, somebody who is disseminating information to hundreds of people in the audience, and they are passive receivers of that information. But those of us who are adult educators realize that the most effective adult education is learn by doing education, where the attendees or the learners really get involved and engaged in their own learning. And that's what scenario-based education does. It gets the learners involved in their own learning. And that's why it's been so effective for so many years on PBS and other stations with people like Fred Friendly and Arthur Miller. People really get engaged and involved. And so that's why we wanted to try scenarios. What we were trying to show through the use of these scenarios is that collaboration is the key when it comes to cybersecurity. When you get hacked, when you get attacked, as the chief legal officer or the general counsel, you can't attack the problem on your own. You need to bring in your teammates. You need to bring in the chief information security officer. You need to bring in the chief information officer. You need to bring in the chief privacy officer. You need to bring in your chief media officer. You need to bring in your CEO. All working together on behalf of your internal client, the company, to address this in a proactive way.
And I think the attendees here sort of represent that sort of broad spectrum of people. You've got the general counsels who have attended. You have people from international companies who are attending because of data privacy concerns, obviously, which is obviously an important thing. And you have, of course, the outside counsel and lawyers. So one of the elements of a couple of the panels have sort of hone in around a new theme, I think, and that is the security that law firms have to put in place in order to protect client data. What have you heard or what have you seen about that?
Absolutely. That is a huge problem right now for law firms. In fact, Judy Miller, who's co-chair of the ABA Task Force on Cybersecurity, was our keynote speaker yesterday. And one of her key themes was that law firms are not doing a good enough job, that lawyers and companies are not doing a good enough job in paying attention to cybersecurity. Just this morning, one of our board members who works for a local company, an inside the Beltway company, said to me, "Larry, I have to admit, we were not paying enough attention to cybersecurity until we had a huge incident. And once we had a huge incident and lost tons of money, then, of course, we paid attention and we developed a cyber strategy." Law firms are not used to paying attention to this. In fact, here at Georgetown Law, we run what's called a managing partner roundtable, where managing partners of local firms get together confidentially once a quarter to meet with two of our professors to address issues of concern to big law firms. And wouldn't you know that Tuesday night, the night before our program, they had a 2-hour roundtable on cybersecurity as it affects law firms with two experts. So I'm hoping that law firms are paying more and more attention to this issue for themselves and for their clients.
Absolutely. And not just the big law firms either. It really affects everybody in the chain.
Exactly. The other theme of this conference, Dan, is the connection between government and the private sector. We're very fortunate to have members of the government on our advisory board, and yesterday and today on our faculty, because we believe that cooperation between the government and the private sector is critical when it comes to cybersecurity. In this context, the government is not the enemy. The government is your helper to try to deal with cybersecurity concerns.
Well, Larry, thanks a lot for taking some time away from the conference to talk with us today. And obviously, Georgetown has a long reputation in the industry in teaching on e-discovery matters and other areas of information management, information governance. So I wish you the best of luck, and obviously this has turned out very well here.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Dan Pittiger with Project Council Media.